The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
My name is Jasmine, and I am a recovering drug addict.
My name is Richie Farrell, aka the Old White Junkie.
And we are your hosts for Exit Team Nashua.
Our mission is to bring recovery into the living room.
Last year, over 72,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose.
That's almost 200 Americans every single day.
We will bring you guests with real-life experiences with addiction and recovery. Welcome to Exit Team Nashua. Hi, welcome to Exit Team Nashua. My name is Jasmine, and I am your host. As always, it's an honor to be back in studio and to share time with you. Exit Team, take people who have real life experiences with addiction, trauma, any kind of suffering. We bring them on our show, we interview them. They can have personal experience, a loved one can have personal experience, or they can offer any kind of resources. Our goal and our mission statement is to bring recovery right into your living room. We have a Facebook page, if you haven't done so yet, which I'm sure you already have, but if you haven't, hop right over to I'm a Heroin Addict on Facebook. Yes, that is right. I am a heroin addict, and give us a like and go ahead and follow us for daily content for positive posts and, to keep people up to date with what's going on in the world with the epidemic. When I shoot my show, I get to pick my guest. We also have two other hosts for the show, Jesse and Richie, and they shoot on different nights than me, but it's my night, my guest. So you want to hear something really funny about you? Sure. So our guest is Jesse Davis. Hi, Jesse.
Hi.
Jesse is a person in recovery. And I met Jesse years ago before I ever found my way to continuous sobriety. But I was talking about you the other day to one of our mutual friends, and and I told them about a time that you came to check on me. And I was not doing so well. And you were like at my door, like knocking on my door, like trying to get in and check on me and my boyfriend. And I literally got on the floor and army crawled to the door and locked it. So you couldn't get in to check on me.
I know. I remember that day because I called your phone sitting on your porch and I heard it ring inside. And that was the point where I just was like, okay. And I left.
So what brings you here? How do you qualify for the show?
I'm a heroin addict. I'm an alcoholic.
Cool.
Luckily today, I found a solution to those problems. I like to consider myself a recovered alcoholic today. I don't live in that constant cycle of being under the influence until life gets so miserable that I have to get sober, and then being sober until my life gets so miserable that I need to put myself back under the influence. So I would say qualification-wise, if you're shooting heroin or smoking crack cocaine on a fairly regular basis, I think that qualifies you to be on here. So.
That's pretty rad qualifications.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, too. The cool part about it's like it's a self-correcting course, right? I'm diagnosing myself at this point, so.
Yeah, awesome. So you said you're a recovered alcoholic. So like, what does the word alcoholic mean to you?
So to me, the word alcoholic means exactly the way that it was explained to me. I have a body that reacts differently than other people to alcohol. What that looks like is like when I drink or do drugs or whatever the case may be, something in me says, hey, you need more of this. And it's not in the sense of like, hey, I need something, I need a snack, or like, hey, I need to go to work, but it's like hey, you need to breathe.
Right.
Almost. Right?
Yep.
It's like necessary to stay alive. My body just screams that it needs more. And then I have a brain that tells me once I am separated that like if I start again, it's going to be different. I'm going to react different. I'm going to handle it different. Which all leads to a spiritual loss of values, which pretty much means that I will step on anybody and whoever I need to get what I think I need. And it's usually the people closest to me that suffer the most.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, which is exactly how alcoholism was explained to me. And when I got that description of an alcoholic. I'm sure that I got it many times in my life, but when I was finally ready to hear and receive that message of what being an alcoholic meant, they had broke down to me very clearly what a spiritual malady was, and they had used the term restless, irritable discontent. And what I had realized for me is that, like, I had never been comfortable in my skin. So, like, I remember very vividly, like, being a little girl and, like, hating school, hating being around people, hating being at home, hating being around my mom, hating everything and everyone. And no matter where I went, I would literally be so miserable that I would, like, be creating something to get out of here. But then when I'd get out of here and I'd go there, it's like, what the hell? Like, I don't want to be here either. And it was broken down for me. And I'm really grateful for the process that I had it broken down for me, because then we reviewed all of my life of a spiritual malady before I found a substance. And then we reviewed what it was like to put a substance in my body. And I realized, holy shit, when I put that substance in my body, it took that feeling away. And that was the feeling that I had been running from my entire life.
So my experience was much the opposite. I loved being around people. I loved being surrounded by groups of people, mostly because I could pretty much be whoever I wanted to be. I kind of had this light about me that, like,
I'm surprised we can even see you. You're a chameleon. You're blending right
yes.
in.
I could shift my personality. I always knew what to say. I'm very good with words, pretty well educated. So, like, I can pretty much talk my way into just about anything. My mom called it the salesman's curse, right? Like, I can talk anybody into just about anything to the point where they believe it. And that's what my childhood looked like, right? Like, I was that kid who just kind of, like, went through always playing the game. And the moment I found substances, I was able to reach that next level of, like, blending in, right? Because it was I no longer had to make people like me. They liked me because of the things that I did, right? My drinking started off much like that. Like, I had the house that, we could party at freshman year, right? So, like, all of a sudden, all these kids who wouldn't talk to me now talk to me because they know that they can come to my house and drink. So it allowed me to blend into a deeper level of something that I had been doing since as long as I can remember. So
When did it, like, become a problem for you?
I'd say probably that first one.
Really?
In one of my favorite stories, there's a one-line paragraph. It says, "Ominous warning that I failed to heed." And that's kind of the story of my drinking and drugging. Was like 15 years old, totaled my mom's semi-new car, drunk. So here I am, driving drunk. 15 years old, not old enough to drink, not even old enough to drive a car.
Right, that's what I wasn't even thinking of the drinking part. I was like, you don't even old enough to drive.
Yeah, I mean, I started at 13. I've been called the late bloomer in some fellowships, right?
Yeah.
So, like, 15 years old, not old enough to drive, not old enough to drink. I'm already causing repercussions that are falling down on other people, becoming that tornado tearing through the lives of the people around me at 15. I hadn't even been drinking for a solid, steady year yet, and I'm already having these problems. But I chalked it up to the people I was hanging out with, those little things that treatment taught me I can blame my alcoholism on. And thank God this time around somebody looked at me for the first time and says, "Listen, Jesse, your disease is not causal. There is nothing that you did that caused this. It is something that's different inside of you as a person. And, like, you are not responsible for that. But you are responsible for your recovery." And, like, it's been a beautiful journey since then.
How old were you when you got sober?
So I started attempting to get sober about 6 months before my 21st birthday.
Okay.
They plopped me in a fellowship. I was in a room with a bunch of guys who had more sobriety than I had life. And I had that typical mentality, right? They told me I was an alcoholic, and I told them, I haven't even had a legal drink yet. You can't tell me that I can't drink.
It doesn't matter until you've conceded to your innermost self.
Right.
Yeah.
And my focus at that time was symptoms, right? Heroin is ruining my life. I need to stop doing it. So I attempted to cut that out. But I held on to that right to drink. And that continued to keep that that physical reaction in motion, and was unable to stop for any sufficient period of time until this time around. And right now, February 15th of 2018, God stepped into my life and separated me from drugs and alcohol for what I hope to be the last time.
February 15th, 2018. So you just celebrated 3 years.
Correct.
Wow. That's crazy. I remember when I first got sober, it would be like, there'd people like be getting like collecting like month to celebrate like their month or their year or their milestone. And I'd be like, wow, that's so crazy.
Mm-hmm. I remember my first spin dry, seven-day detox, quick Suboxone taper to get past the sickness of heroin. And they told me I should go to a 28-day program. And I said, that's a really long time in my life to stay sober. I don't know if I can do it. And now I look back. And
Did it now like the treatment modules are because like evidence-based studies show that like the longer you're in treatment, like the better your chances are. So like treatment nowadays is a couple months long now.
Well, that's one thing that I try to get across guys that I work with today that are coming in. They have a really hard time with the principles that the fellowship I attend pushes to help with long-term sobriety. And I try to get across to them that like a lot of these things that I talk about, these feelings, these experiences that I've had that have led me to this thing that I call God today, came at 6 months sober, a year sober, 18 months sober, even 3 years sober. And the hard part about experiences had at 3 years sober is like you have to get to 3 years sober to have them. So like they're trying to hop in the boat on day one and figure out why they're uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you gotta like literally grow through it.
Yeah, and I had a guy give me an analogy really early on. It's kind of like going to a circus and watching a guy push a wheelbarrow across a tightrope, right? I tell you, hey, go to this circus, watch this guy push the wheelbarrow across. He makes it every time, right? You're gonna show up to that circus with the belief that like he's gonna make it. And he does that stupid little fake fall thing in the middle, your heart jumps to your throat and you're like, right? And you go a few times, you see it for yourself. You have now become convinced that he's gonna make it every time. And when he does that fake fall thing, you're not as worked up anymore. And you start telling your friends about it. Mm-hmm. You're telling them because you have faith that this man's gonna make it. At a certain point, you reach such a faith with this man pushing this wheelbarrow that you're willing to sit in the wheelbarrow and let him push you across the tightrope. And that's having trust in that man. You see the little sign on the wall that says, let go, trust God, whatever. And I show up on the first day trying to sit in the wheelbarrow and figure out why I'm uncomfortable, when the only thing that's being asked of me is to show up to the circus. Show up, sit in the seat and see it. Mm-hmm. You'll get there. But they take on this burden, it feels like, that they're supposed to be spiritually 5 years sober on week one. And it says in the literature that I read that like we can commence at a simpler level. We can start small.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty crazy. I'm going through some interesting stuff in life right now. And I called my mentor 2 days ago. And like everything that I'm going through, it's so unknown, right? Like I have no idea what's going to happen with anything. And there's like a lot of pretty large contributing factors to my life here, like on the table. And like, I'm okay with all of it because like, all I have to do is show up every day and like be the best person I can be. And through my experience of life, like God has taken care of me. And even though like I might not want to leave behind situations that I'm currently in, like I know for a fact that God will bring me to better, And so like, I don't need to know where I'm going, what's going to happen. All I have to do is like, you said faith and then trust, because like I have faith in God, but I also have trust in God. And you know what I mean? Like I don't have to question anything and I can feel uncomfortable and I don't have to react to how fucking uncomfortable. I just swore how uncomfortable I feel, right? Like I feel uncomfortable with what's going on in my life right now. And, that's totally cool. Jazz, like welcome to being a human, like a roller coaster of emotions. You don't need to react to them and be a psychopath.
Yeah. And the cool part is like when I would feel uncomfortable before, I would run.
Yeah.
Right. I was a runner. Mm-hmm. So like today,
sorry, I just literally had a picture of you with like shorts on and sneakers. That's Jesse running from his problems.
That's almost exactly what it looked like. And like today I don't, right? Like a lot of people in my life tend to look at it as somewhat careless at times from an outside perspective, but my philosophy is like, whatever. That's my new favorite spiritual term, is just whatever. Rent's due, whatever, it'll get paid, right? Oh, car broke down, whatever.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
this person has to get there. Okay, we'll get her there. Like we can only do what we can do.
Exactly.
And to the outside perspective, I mean, I can see how it looks somewhat careless, but my walk of life today is just kind of just roll with the punches.
Yep, it will get done. I know I have a friend going through something as well, and I was like, but like, what do you have control over? Like nothing. So just like let it be. You literally have you have control over how you respond. You have no control. I can't control you. I sure cannot control my dog. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't control what happens at work. I can control how I show up as a business professional at work. I can show up how I can control how I show up as a woman in recovery. I can control how I show up like authentic to me. You know, that's it. That's literally all I can control.
Yeah, there's two types of problems in this world: things that are my problem and things that are not my problem. And the cool thing about things that are not my problem, they cannot become my problem unless I make them.
True.
It's a lesson I try to drive home to a lot of guys.
That's hilarious. When you were talking about how you run from your problems, you know, like what I do is I just create mass chaos.
So mine was, I'm going to do what I want to do until the problems pile up on me so bad that there's nothing else I can do except run.
Yeah.
And I'm going to run until I cannot run any further. And it's led me to a lot of weird places. It's also led me to a lot of good places. Because luckily for me, with my alcoholism, I got to this place where like the only place I could run was a 12-step fellowship. I had tried many other different options. I even was restricted by the U.S. government to stay in a certain building unless escorted. They had a legal document telling me that I had no ability to drink or do drugs or move about in life on my own. The Army called it a restriction of liberty, right? So I was pretty much a prisoner in my barracks room, and I still found a way to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And what that looks like is like I come home and I continue on that role until I get a phone call that says, hey, we're going to start garnishing your paychecks in life for this money that you borrowed here, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And then I complain about how bad life is treating me. But I can see today, luckily, that like, hey, these are actions that I took, and I'm now going to stand up for them. I don't have to run.
Yeah. You know, what's I was thinking about the insanity of that, you know, and you had like talked about how that person had told you like that you didn't like cause this disease. And I think something that like for me that like I couldn't comprehend for such a long time is like the loss in power of choice. Like I literally could not understand that, like, because like a piece of me each time I drank or did drugs like wanted to drink and do drugs, you know? So I didn't like view it as like I'm literally doing drugs against, because like I wanted to do it, you know, in retrospect now looking back, and I remember very, very vividly and very powerfully my first step experience, you know? But yeah, like if you're someone who suffers from what I suffer from, I don't get to choose whether I drink or not today. Like by the grace of God, I haven't drank yet today. And that's because like I do all these things and I work on all these principles that you were talking about, you know?
I think it comes a lot, not to pinpoint specific people, but like I think it comes a lot to verbiage, right? Like I remember hearing people 23, 25, 30 years sober saying, I am a grateful recovering alcoholic, right? And that scared me because I view recovering as not reaching the recovered state, right? I don't want to be 30 years still struggling with this thing. I didn't want to be that guy who, oh my God, I've been to 30 meetings in the last 30 days and I'm going to miss tonight and I'm afraid that I'm going to drink. right? I want to get to this point where like I am okay
Yeah.
and I can go to a meeting when I want to go to a meeting.
Yeah.
And if I miss a meeting, I'm gonna still be okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't have to depend on these little things because I'm depending on one big thing.
We don't have to be a slave to the process of, you know what I mean? Like we're recovered. We get to be free. We may go where any free man may go.
Right. And what I've learned is that it's because of who I am and the way that I think about things, much like in my active addiction, I am a treater of symptoms.
Yeah.
I treat this internal condition, my cause, with this symptom that is alcohol or drugs. I came in thinking my problem was heroin, and they said I had alcoholism, and I instantly disconnected from
Yeah.
it.
I
Right?
love
Because-
that.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. I'm like, oh, have a seat. I'm about to teach you something, okay?
Yeah, because like I disconnected myself from those people, right? I was that guy in the back of the room, arms crossed. The guy gets up at the front and says, you know, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm an alcoholic, and I'm in the back with my smug face on saying, yeah, you ain't got nothing for me because I'm a drug addict, right? You don't know how hard I've had it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I realizing that we suffered from the same thing, and I was getting lost in the symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I go to treatment, and then they start treating my symptoms rather than my cause, and they're worried about getting me sobered up and putting me back on the street than they are about fixing what's actually going on in me. And then I get to a fellowship, and they're like, don't drink. And I spend so much time focused on the don't drink that it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy of itself, right? Like I spend all my time thinking about not drinking, and then I spend my time thinking about drinking, right?
Don't drink doesn't work for us.
Right, because I'm
Yeah.
the type that drinks no matter what.
Yeah.
When in all actuality, abstinence is a symptom of spiritual living. If I focused on the cause rather than that symptom of not drinking, life gets really smooth.
Mm-hmm.
So the verbiage is big, right? Talk about people talking about, in long-term sobriety, talking about having a craving, right? A craving is a uncontrollable act by the body, right? Rather than an obsessive thought,
Obsession, yeah.
right? A thought I have control over. If I call it a craving and not an obsession, I have now relinquished all of my ability to control that.
Mm-hmm.
3 years sober, if I have a thought about drinking, it's an obsessive thought. I can do something about that.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment I call it a craving, I'm saying, I have no control. I guess I'm just going to drink.
It's hard though because many places teach that like the thought is a craving, you know.
I have no problem telling them that they're wrong.
I know you do, and I also have no problem educating people with what the knowledge that I've been blessed with, right? But it's true, and that's really like something. I guess it doesn't even truly, honestly matter in the light of things. So that's something that I'm up all the time, like, cause like I'll like be talking about a craving or you know the abnormal reaction that happens within the body, and people are identifying that with the thought process, and I'm like, yes, you. Once this allergy kicks in or you know you lose control and you need more and more and more, like yes you're powerless over that, but like what's taking place in the mind is something completely different, and you actually are powerless over that as well, you know. It takes some time, and I'm really grateful for the treatment center that I work in, because like not everyone is going to find their way to believe in God, like you know, and that's okay. Like we I don't tell anyone like that this is the only way ever. We are not a monopoly, right? But like they break down like the basic science, like why you should meditate, like how you are literally like, because right now I probably just pissed so many people off when I was like, you're powerless over your thoughts. I've heard it all. No, like literally like your neurotransmitters stop firing to your prefrontal cortex, right? And so like meditation helps you build that. Evidence-based studies show that like the brain does not even start repairing itself between 90 days sober up to a year, you know? So like when you've done 28 days in treatment and you are looking your counselor dead in the eyes, I don't need aftercare, I'm not going to drink. Yes, I meant that. I wholeheartedly meant that. However, I'm hijacked by the way my brain fires, you know, and these principles that you're talking about and that I often talk about, those principles help you rewire your brain so you have more control over your thought process.
I think the most important thing to remember is that no matter what spiritual literature you read, right, whether that be like Eckhart Tolle or Dr. Rollins or something like that, whether you go to church, regardless of your religion, right, they all say the same thing. Actually, same two things. One, no man is a judge in his own case, right? No
man is what?
No man is a judge in his own case.
Okay, got it.
Right? I need to be surrounded by people
Yep.
that can hold me accountable,
Yep.
and I can run my thought processes through in order to make sure that they're sound.
Mm-hmm.
And they also say, seek first the kingdom, the rest I shall provide unto you. Meaning, if you seek out a spiritual life in connection with something, I don't care how you do it, I don't care how you get there, the rest will kind of fall into place.
Yeah.
Not to take away from the necessity of, physical separation and detox, right? It's very important that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached, as well as the other psychological issues that go along with that life. Because regardless of what it is, we all see trauma during active addiction, whether that be emotional, physical, what have you.
Yeah.
And those things also do need to be addressed in some form or another.
Yeah, absolutely. Accompanied also with many people like need to treat their mental health, Cool. Well, what else you got for us?
I'm not really sure.
Put on the spot.
Yeah.
What's your life like today? Let's talk about that.
My life today is beyond words, honestly. I had this nice, neat little list of things that I wanted from sobriety, right? I had fathered children, but I had never been a dad, right? My biggest dream when I got sober was like, I want to be a dad. And like, I'm able to do that today, right? I have a son who's 2. He's never seen me drink. He's never seen me drunk, right? I was at every single one of his appointments when he was in utero. And like, that's a story in and of itself, right? Because like, he was born really sick and I got mad at God, but I have a house, right? I have a job that trusts me, right? I show up and like, I'm slowly moving up in that job to the position that like I want to be in. And like, they're okay with that, right? If I call out, I don't have to bring in a doctor's note because my boss knows me to be honest and knows that I'm not going to lie to him. I have a son who at 5 months of sobriety. So in sobriety, I had to sign over my parental rights to my dad because I was not in a situation to take care of him at that moment. And like, he is now in my custody full time. And it was an experience in and of itself to walk into a courtroom and say, look, judge, this is what my life looks like. And like, I know that I don't have custody right now, but there's absolutely no reason for him not to live with me and be with me, his real dad. And that judge looked at me and said, you're absolutely right, and signed off on the paper. I was in that courtroom maybe 15 minutes.
Wow.
And I was that guy who had the job, the wife, the kids, the family, and I traded every bit of that for drugs and alcohol.
You're getting it back.
I am, slowly, but it does come.
Yeah, cool. Well, it was an honor to have you on. It was
It's an honor
fun.
to be here.
So thank you all for joining us. Anyone that wants to connect with Jesse, was interested in anything that he said, or they have like a loved one that might need some resource or some help and that he'd be a good resource, reach out to us on our Facebook page. I am a heroin addict and we will get you in contact with Jesse. As always, we love you and thank you for sharing your time with us.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.